Lonely CEO discovers unexpected joy when a little girl invites him to her amazing birthday party. Vincent Morgan, a fortress of corporate success, stared out of his high-rise apartment window, wine glass trembling slightly in his grasp. Below him, Chicago pulsed with a vibrant energy that felt achingly out of reach. His recent promotion had elevated him to the apex of his career, loaded with accolades but devoid of connection. Each clink of his glass only amplified the loneliness echoing within his meticulously curated home, an echo of sacrifices made on the altar of ambition. He wrestled with a creeping discomfort. What had he truly gained? A title? A salary that sparkled impressively but lacked warmth? The silence wrapped around him like a heavy fog, threatening to swallow him whole. Then, a colorful envelope slipped under his door, changed everything. Ella, his exuberant 8-year-old neighbor, beckoned with an invitation to her birthday party. Initially dismissive, he almost crumpled the card, thinking it another trivial child's celebration. But as he held it in his hand, nostalgia seeped into his veins like the sweet aroma of cinnamon from his mother's kitchen years ago. Memories of laughter around warm family gatherings flickered to life, a stark contrast to the sterile meetings that now filled his days. Against the swirling current of his skepticism, he found himself drawn toward the gathering. Maybe stepping outside his carefully crafted bubble could offer him something he hadn't realized he needed. The day was a whirlwind of colors and sounds. As Vincent stepped into Ella's home, a cacophony of laughter enveloped him, the air thick with frosting and the unfiltered joy of children. He felt momentarily out of place, observing families immersed in connection while a towering figure draped in tailored success hovered on the sidelines. Uncertainty gripped him. With each passing moment, he felt like a ghost amid the living. Yet, as games began and Ella's bright spirit illuminated the room, he found himself shedding layers of wall. The children, wide-eyed and buzzing, pulled him into their world with an infectious laughter that eased his tense muscles. He was no longer the formidable CEO but an oversized hero intended for celebrating the wonders of childhood joy. Laughter bubbled to the surface, each smile cutting through the solitude he'd cultivated over the years. In the corner, a kindred spirit, Ella's grandmother, caught his eye. Their ensuing conversation brought warmth, as she shared tales colored by the brushstrokes of triumph and despair. Her wisdom struck a chord, nudging him to confront the shadows of his choices. As they talked, Vincent grappled with unsettling realizations. Is success worth the emptiness gnawing at his spirit? Before he could fully process the implications, an argument erupted between several parents, the minutiae of birthday etiquette suddenly snapping back with a vengeance. Tensions spilled over, exposing old insecurities and judgments that echoed in the air like a chilling reminder of societal expectations. The joy of the celebration became overshadowed by the harshness of competition, leaving Vincent grappling with profound anguish. He found himself at a crossroads, caught between the thrill of childlike wonder and the cold weight of adult pretense. The dissonance nagged at him, a promising day morphing into an inner storm. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the party wound down, a weight bore down on Vincent, both exhilarating and terrifying. Ella's hand reached up to present him with a thank you card, her eyes sparkling with that youthful radiance. For a fleeting moment, a wave of clarity cut through his confusion, a vision of what could be. Yet, just as quickly, the festering doubts returned. Was he ready to redefine everything he had worked for? The laughter of children still echoed around him, but amid that joy was a gnawing sense of reality. Would Vincent continue the pursuit of ambition through isolation, or could he embrace connection and vulnerability? The inner tumult roared louder than the frivolity surrounding him, leaving him poised on the brink of profound change but still tethered to the corporate world that had defined him for far too long. Vincent retreated to his apartment, his heart still heavy with the aftermath of the birthday party. The hallway bore witness to his wavering resolve, each echoing step pounding uncertainty into the very fibers of his being. He leaned against the door, inhaling sharply, dwelling on the vibrant laughter that had swiftly been replaced by the stifled silence of his solitary existence. The next morning, he awoke with a jolt, dreams lingering like wisps of smoke, visions of Ella's joyful smile mixing with his own contemplation on success and loneliness. Without thinking, he clutched his phone and opened his email. Business dealings, mundane tasks, and banal correspondence awaited him, but each click felt increasingly hollow. Was this really all there was? He knew he would soon have to step back into the fray of meetings and corporate strategies, yet the unease had turned into an internal fire demanding acknowledgement. What if he redefined himself? Contemplating this, he recalled Ella's infectious laughter and the raw purity of connection he felt at that party. The thought flickered like a candle in the storm of his mind. At work, Vincent faced his team with a newfound ferocity. They engaged in a project destined to expand the company's reach, but he found his thoughts spiraling. Instead of the usual power play where success was measured solely by numbers, he voiced an idea that strayed from tradition, a community outreach initiative aimed at supporting local children's programs. His proposal shocked everyone. Silence followed his submission like a thick fog eclipsing their usual banter. Really, Vincent? One colleague smirked, crossing his arms. A charity project? Yes, a charity project, he replied with surprising conviction, feeling the burn of judgment but unwilling to retreat. It could actually foster loyalty and connection within the community, enhancing our corporate identity and ultimately our bottom line, he added, desperately searching for the familiar metrics of success they all understood. Tentative murmurs replaced the skepticism in the room. To his surprise, some colleagues leaned in with questions, curious about the execution. Flashes of possibilities illuminated his mind, the impact on children's lives, the camaraderie entailed in the effort, even the chance for personal growth. But then doubt crashed against the promising tide. Would this lead to genuine connection, or would it merely become another tick on a corporate checkbox? Voices of resistance echoed in his mind, one voice rising above all, a portrayal of Vincent as the phony CEO trying too hard to make a good impression. His emotional turmoil spun like a cyclone. The conflict between ambition and connection churned inside him, a wrestling match of values where the stakes were his very identity. How could he lead a team toward passion and authenticity when he spent years crafting a wall of unapproachability? Was transparency just another facade? Returning home that evening, Vincent stared out of his high-rise window, the city sprawling beneath him as though beckoning him to engage. He ached for something more visceral than fleeting accolades, a sense of belonging igniting in him like the dawning sun. Lightning struck in his heart, a relentless determination surged. Perhaps he could forge a new path, not just for himself but for his company. Could he become a beacon of change in an industry steeped in aloofness? The moment felt significant, a crack in the armor of loneliness. But as he turned away from the view, the thrill of newfound purpose released an unsettling question: would anyone follow him into this risky endeavor, or would he find himself standing alone once again? As his plans crystallized in the days to come, doubt began to cloud his vision. The fear of risking everything for a dream felt like standing on the edge of a precipice. Would he leap? A sudden notification chimed on his phone, an email from Ella's grandmother, reaching out about potential volunteers for her community project. Despite the clarity of purpose stirring inside him, he hesitated. What if he faltered in front of her? The moment of truth loomed closer. Could he brave the uncertainties around this initiative, and what hidden aspects of himself might he discover in the process? The following week felt like a suffocating whirlwind for Vincent. He oscillated between exhilaration and trepidation, each moment a pendulum swinging between possibility and anxiety. The email from Ella's grandmother lay unanswered, a digital embodiment of his internal struggle. He knew he could always retreat to his conventional role, a well-worn path of leadership defined by metrics and expectation. But each time the thought crossed his mind, he found it more repulsive than before. Encouraged by the initial sparks of curiosity from his colleagues, Vincent met with them again, determined to discuss next steps for the community outreach initiative. He gathered them in a bright conference room, sunlight filtering through the large windows. As they settled around the polished table, a palpable energy buzzed in the air. For the first time, he felt the waves of hesitation surfacing in his body give way to a tide of hope and anticipation. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady, but his heart raced. "I know the idea I brought forward sparked some mixed reactions. Let us tackle it head-on today." As he shared his vision, articulating the potential impact on children's lives and the ripples of positive change that could expand from their company into the community, he sensed his own spirit awakening. The more animated he became, the more engaged his team appeared. "So, you're saying we can use our resources to really make a difference?" One teammate challenged skeptically, flipping through his notes. "Absolutely," Vincent nodded, feeling the burn of urgency in his chest. "Imagine cultivating a brand that is synonymous with positive change. It's not just charity. It's investment into our community and our brand identity." Questions flew through the air, and Vincent found himself expertly navigating the concerns surrounding feasibility, budget, and branding. With each answer, he felt his earlier doubts recede. Was this a facade coming undone? Or was he forging a new path carved from authenticity? Later that evening, alone in his apartment, he reflected on the day's breakthroughs. The glow of potential success shimmered in his mind, but alongside it remained the gnawing concern: what was genuine? He found himself reflecting on his interactions with Ella at the party, the effortless connection, the spontaneous laughter. He hadn't been Vincent the CEO at that moment, he had simply been Vincent, a man craving connection. But was it too late for such change? The idea of attending Ella's community project, however enticing, felt like a commitment to a version of himself that had long been dormant. What could he offer? The further he delved into this internal dialogue, the more he wondered about his own barriers to vulnerability. The next morning brought clarity in the form of resolve. He picked up his phone, heart thrumming against his ribcage. With fingers trembling slightly, he began replying to Ella's grandmother. "I'd love to volunteer," he typed, "to help with the upcoming community project. Please let me know how I can contribute." He hit send before doubt could shake his resolve, and the immediate rush of adrenaline was intoxicating. What drew him into this wasn't merely service, but the urgency of shifting his relationship with himself. If he was to become the leader he envisioned, the man who inspired authenticity, he needed to first embrace the essence of that which he sought. But as excitement rose within, so did trepidation. Would he find the connections he sought, or would the insecurities that had haunted him resurface, stronger than before? The questions haunted him like shadows trailing close behind as he prepared for the uncertain journey ahead. He had taken a small step, but the road ahead was littered with unknowns. The moment of truth awaited him. As he closed his eyes, preparing for whatever lay ahead, he felt the growing anticipation that perhaps led to something greater. And then it struck him: what if this was only the beginning? What if the community work led him straight into a confrontation he was wholly unprepared for, facing his deepest fears of inadequacy and isolation when he encountered the children whose lives he aimed to touch? Could he turn vulnerability into a strength strong enough to shape everything he had once known? The morning sun filtered through the curtains, illuminating Vincent's cluttered kitchen table, where an array of papers and reminders sprawled like the remnants of a long-forgotten battle. The notification sound from his phone sent a rush of adrenaline through him. Ella's grandmother's reply had arrived. The invitation was not just an offer to volunteer, it was a doorway into a world he had mostly ignored. "Thank you. We would love to have you join us. The children will be thrilled to meet you. We start at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Please arrive at the community center around 9:30 to help set up." He stared at the screen, half expecting an outpouring of hesitation to follow. Instead, it felt as if a small flame sparked within the revelation that he was being woven into something larger than himself. Did he dare step into this new role, one rooted in genuine connection and purpose? The hours turned into a chorus of muted anticipation. Vincent's workday felt trivial compared to the weekend looming ahead. Meetings and strategy sessions felt like distractions as he pondered the children, their laughter, and their unfiltered curiosity. How would they see him? Would they know the weight of his corporate identity? Sneaking glances at himself in reflective surfaces, he hesitated to find a semblance of the man who would step into that community center. Would they see a leader? Or merely a man trying to navigate the intricacies of sincerity? That evening, a sense of urgency propelled him to lay out his attire for the upcoming day, something casual yet presentable. As he folded the fabric, he caught sight of himself in the mirror, realizing that this moment was rife with potential transformation. Friday evenings, once reserved for late work and unwinding in solitude, had morphed into a realm of introspection. He reflected on the essence of connection. The vulnerability he had avoided for so long was tantalizingly close now. Saturday arrived, bringing with it an electric energy that buzzed beneath his skin. With each passing mile as he drove to the community center, his heart pounded louder, echoing the duality of fear and excitement. He wanted to belong, yet fear whispered reminders of his status, standing apart from the very essence of childhood innocence he craved to engage with. Once he arrived, Vincent's breath hitched at the sight of the bustling center. Children giggled in clusters, their voices harmonizing with the pings of activity. The initial jitters threatened to consume him. He stood in limbo, watching starlight and loose balloons soar through the air, each representing a child's unencumbered spirit. "Are you here to help?" A small voice chirped, sparking him from his reverie. Vincent knelt to meet the child's gaze. A little girl with boundless energy and curiosity regarded him with hopeful eyes. "Yes, I am," he replied, fighting to keep his voice steady, recognizing how much he could learn from this child's perspective. "Great. I'm Ella," she beamed, extending her hand, her infectious smile dissolving some of the barriers he had unwittingly built. As he grasped her tiny hand, something unfurled in Vincent's chest, a tether to purpose. For the first time in a long while, he felt the pull toward genuine vulnerability. They began setting up together, Ella directing him with an assuredness that belied her age. Under her guidance, he lost track of his position as a corporate leader, focusing instead on the authenticity of the present moment. Laughter erupted around them, and Vincent found himself laughing too, unearthing pieces of joy buried deep within. Yet, just as happiness surged, an unshakable dread lingered. Would he falter when faced with the profound need in the eyes of the other children? What if his true self, the man conditioned to shield against emotions, was not enough? Vincent caught himself questioning his ability to engage. The fears he had suppressed surfaced, battling against this newfound excitement. He needed to create genuine connections, but were they even possible within the fabric of his carefully cultivated corporate persona? As the festivities began to unfold, Vincent sensed that this might be more than just a volunteer experience. He was on the precipice of deep insights about genuine connection and the complexities of his own identity. And then, just as he steadied himself, a sudden commotion distracted him. He turned his head, poising for whatever was to come next. The inquisitive eyes of many children were now locked on him, eager and waiting. The moment loomed. Would he embrace who he might become, or retreat into the shadows of his past? The answer hung in the balance, ready to shape the trajectory of his journey. Vincent took a measured breath as he faced the sea of youthful anticipation. Their eyes, bubbling with innocence and sheer delight, seemed to pierce through the barriers he'd erected. The cacophony of laughter was a contrast to the sterile quiet of his office, yet it felt strangely inviting, urging him to shed the weight of his corporate armor. "Can you tell us a story?" a boy piped up, his voice ringing with eagerness. Another child chimed in, "Or maybe a magic trick." The request sent a jolt through Vincent. He was not prepared for this. Telling stories or performing tricks was far from the gravitas he navigated in boardrooms. As the children continued to clamor for his attention, he felt the familiar spiral of self-doubt tightening around him. Each laugh rang like a distant echo of his own childhood, one he had long since buried under spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Yet here he stood, stripped of his usual tools for success. His mind raced through memories of his own upbringing, recalling the lessons his father had imparted about being strong, unyielding, a leader without vulnerability. But the present felt different. Perhaps perspective was worth exploring anew. "Okay," Vincent said, tentatively raising his hands to quiet the excitement. "How about I make up a story right now?" The murmurs hushed into whispers, and as he began, something in him shifted. The narrative flowed from his lips, inspired by the children's energy, twisting familiar fairy tale tropes into a tale of adventure and friendship. With each word, he found unexpected depths within himself, tapping into an unfamiliar reservoir of creativity. As the plot unfolded, he noticed the way the kids leaned in closer, their little faces painted with rapt attention, and suddenly the layers of fear began to peel away, exposing something raw and authentic. This was a connection direct and unfiltered. After his improvised tale, laughter erupted around him, and a profound sense of connection settled in. Their delight animated the atmosphere, invigorating Vincent's spirit. He felt free. For the first time in years, he reveled not as a business executive but as a human being with flaws, fears, and the capacity to engage in a moment devoid of pretense. Yet, just as he began to savor this rare euphoria, a shadow crept back into his heart. What if these children only saw him as a frivolous distraction? Beneath the laughter and shared stories lay a dread. What if he let them down? They depended on rolling laughter, not on the hesitant man with a heavy past. As the hours rolled on, he veered from storytelling to games, each interaction a brushstroke painting a new version of himself. He ventured to climb in a bounce house, nervous laughter spilling from his lips as he fumbled amid the chaos. He was a far cry from the composed figure presiding over board meetings. Yet, with each moment spent jumping and playing, he realized he was becoming something more. Then came a moment that threatened to unravel this fragile tapestry. A child found herself on the ground, tears welling in her eyes after a stumble. Her sobs cut through the merriment, their harshness contrasting with the carefree atmosphere surrounding them. Vincent's instinct kicked in, he recognized the need for reassurance. But doubt slithered back, whispering that he was hopelessly unqualified. In that instant, he faced a defining choice. Would he retreat to the safe confines of his indifference or step forward and offer the empathy these children desperately needed? Swallowing hard, Vincent knelt beside the crying girl. "Hey there," he said softly, unsure how to bridge the divide to a child's sensitive heart. "Sometimes, when we fall, it hurts. But it's okay. Can I help you up?" In that fleeting second, as she looked at him, he glimpsed the reflection of his own tenderness, his capacity to connect, to embrace vulnerability. The path forward loomed clearer, illuminated by a simple act of compassion. But would this newfound clarity endure, or would the pressure of his daily life threaten to pull him back into the shadows? The seeds of transformation lay in his hands, and the choices he made next would determine whether he would nurture them or allow them to wither away. Suddenly, a voice broke through his reverie. "Can you stay longer? We want to play more." The plea echoed around him, stirring both hope and fear. Vincent hesitated for a moment, caught between the demands of a world he was conditioned to prioritize and the burgeoning connection that invited him to stay. But deep down, he sensed the urgency of this choice, an opportunity that could reshape him forever. Could he truly step away from the weight of expectation and fully embrace this unexpected journey? The moment hung in the air, trembling with potential. Vincent's mind raced, caught in a tempest of conflicting thoughts. On one side was the unwavering inertia of his career, the relentless push of deadlines and expectations, while on the other lay a flickering flame of connection, an invitation to embrace a simpler, more genuine existence. The laughter of children, vibrant and intoxicating, pulled him closer like a magnetic force. With each pleading gaze, an invisible thread intertwined with his consciousness, begging him to choose joy over obligation. Could he let go of the corporate chains that confined him? He noted the sparkle in the children's eyes, an earnest belief that he could bring them joy. How ironic that in their innocence, they looked to him, a weary executive, as someone capable of gift-wrapping delight, yet it was he who stood to gain so much more from this interaction. In a split second, his decision crystallized. "All right, I'll stay a little longer," he declared, his voice steadier than he felt inside. The immediate eruption of cheers sent a jolt of warmth through him, invigorating yet alarming. How could he sustain this newfound energy? The hours sped by, woven together with spontaneous games, storytelling, and laughter that spilled over like sunshine. With each passing moment, he found his apprehensions diminishing, replaced by an exhilarating sense of spontaneity. In this atmosphere of uninhibited joy, he confronted the remnants of his stagnant professional persona. As dusk approached, the children, wide-eyed and animated, clamored for another round of storytelling. Spurred by their insatiable curiosity, Vincent sat cross-legged among them, a new spark igniting within him. He wove elaborate tales of dragons, bravery, and friendship, letting his imagination soar, unfettered by the constraints of corporate life. As he spoke, the words became a bridge, crossing the chasm between the child he once was and the man he'd become. But even amidst the delight, shadows lingered in Vincent's mind. He noticed a pattern emerging, a desire to be liked, to impress these children with tales that outshone the mundane realities of his life. The fear of inadequacy wormed its way back in. What if the stories faltered? Would his newfound connection shatter like glass? "Tell us about your adventures." A girl piped up, eyes wide with expectation. The question lodged in his throat like a stone. Adventure? The boardroom monologues on profit and loss could hardly compare to the courage it took to face vulnerability during this birthday celebration. Could he share his true self, the man behind the facade of success? The prospect of transparency clawed at him, daring him to relinquish the polished exterior. "You know," he began, hesitantly gathering courage, "I have more stories than you can imagine. But I have to warn you, not all of them are heroic. Some are about mistakes I made along the way." Their expressions morphed into intrigue, the children leaning in closer as if he had just promised to unveil a hidden treasure. This was a risk, laying bare shadows he'd carried closely tucked away under layers of professional polish. But there was a thrill in doing so, a catharsis unlike any quarterly report could deliver. As he shared his stumbling blocks, the laughter intermingled with deep contemplation on their part, drawing forth sincere engagement. The simplicity of their understanding, rooted in empathy more than analysis, churned something profound within him. Vincent's heart quickened with a realization dawning upon him: it wasn't just about entertaining them, it was about fostering connection through vulnerability. This moment had the power to shape him, to enrich his identity beyond the walls of his office. And just when he felt on the brink of genuine introspection, a sudden noise drew his attention away, a commotion erupting at the edge of the party. A group of kids had huddled around something, voices raised in concern. His heart sank. Was this an accident? Would it require him to step back into a place of authority he thought he had sidestepped? Facing a distressing situation among children, would he revert to his past self? He took a deep breath, apprehensively moving toward the gathering, the tension in the air palpable. What awaited him could derail everything he had begun to rediscover within himself. As Vincent pushed through the cluster of children, a knot tangled tighter in his stomach. The cheerful atmosphere had transformed into a zone of worry, and shadows loomed larger than he had anticipated. The laughter that once filled the air felt distant now, the collective worry of children piercing through the tranquility he had come to enjoy. "Step back, please," a child exclaimed urgently, trying to clear space around whatever lay on the ground. Vincent had envisioned a realm of possibility in embracing vulnerability, but here was a test, a moment that threatened to undo the very progress he craved. The group parted slightly as he reached the front. There, on the grass, lay a small puppy, its paw caught in the brambly grasp of a thorny bush. The sight brought a rush of relief even as it rippled with urgency. The puppy whimpered softly, clearly distressed, and Vincent's heart clenched at the sound. He could see the children's expressions shift from concern to sheer panic. They had relied on him for joy, now, they looked to him for rescue. Instinctively, he dropped to his knees, a surprising shift in perspective that mirrored his internal reawakening. He reached out a hand, feeling a mix of trepidation and resolve surge within him. The tension in the air coiled and expanded, yet he found himself steadied by a greater purpose beyond the confines of his previous identity. "It's okay, little guy," he murmured softly, striving to mask any hint of authority. He focused instead on empathy, channeling the vulnerability he had begun to embrace. The children mimicked his technique, their voices settling, murmuring soothing words as if they were actually comforters rather than mere spectators. As he gently disentangled the puppy's paw from the bush, he felt a rush of clarity pierce through the chaos. It wasn't just about rescuing the puppy, it was about redefining what it meant to lead. With every perplexing moment in the boardroom, he had sought to dominate the narrative with polished presentations. Here, amidst this frantic energy, he discovered an alternative avenue for leadership born of compassion. The puppy, freed at last, curled up in his lap, letting out an exhausted sigh. Vincent looked up to find the children's faces illuminated with awe, their fear momentarily forgotten. This was not the grand spectacle of corporate success, rather, it was a quiet, profound act of care that reflected an authenticity he had yearned for but struggled to articulate in board meetings. "See?" He spoke softly, a smile creeping onto his face. "Sometimes, we all face obstacles, and it's okay to ask for help." The nods from the children were swift, their eyes gleaming with understanding that transcended the adult complexities of business metrics. A thought flickered through his mind. If he could apply this principle of authentic connection in a personal, vulnerable manner here, could he integrate it into his professional life as well? What if leadership wasn't about demonstrating strength but fostering an environment where others could flourish, leading with heart over head? Just as optimism began to fill the void of doubt, a distant sound shrouded his thoughts, an unmistakable ringtone slicing through the lingering atmosphere of camaraderie. His phone vibrated relentlessly in his pocket, a stark reminder of his corporate obligations nudging him back toward the life he had so carefully crafted but now questioned. He fished it out, glancing at the screen. A call. It was from his boss, a high-stakes meeting scheduled for the following week, the pressure of which felt more daunting than ever. The children remained oblivious to the raging storm brewing inside him. Their laughter rang out as they began to play with the puppy, fantasies re-envisioned and renewed, while Vincent's heart pounded with that familiar sense of conflict between two worlds. Caught between the promise of discovery in this newfound relationship with vulnerability and the ruthless demands of the corporate machine, Vincent faced the dawning realization that he would have to confront both simultaneously. The price of freedom, he mused, echoed through his mind, would demand a much greater sacrifice. "What's wrong?" A small voice squeaked from the children, glancing at him with concern. The question hung in the air, highlighting the duality of his dilemma, a moment of truth inching closer. With the phone still in hand, he contemplated his next move. He had begun to break down the barriers to his true self. Now he must decide whether to return to the life he knew or forge forward into unknown territory. He inhaled deeply, searching for clarity amidst the surging waves of uncertainty. Which direction would he choose? The tug of one more whisper or the shout of responsibility? The moment of decision loomed, and the cacophony of their joy contrasted starkly against his impeding reality, forcing a crucial reckoning he could no longer avoid. Vincent stared at his phone, the screen glowing with the unread message from his boss, a reminder that responsibilities awaited him. The laughter of the children evaporated into a mere backdrop, their carefree spirits juxtaposed starkly against his crumbling composure. For a fleeting second, he contemplated turning the phone off, erasing the impending pressure, yet that feeling quickly slipped away, replaced by an urgency to reconnect with the looming world of demands he had been trying to escape. "Vincent! Are you okay?" The children huddled closer, their eyes wide and expressive, as though waiting for guidance from him, a figure who had suddenly blurred the lines of authority and vulnerability. The weight of their expectations settled onto his shoulders. He felt more vulnerable than ever, adrift between two identities but yearning for firm ground. He hesitated. Words eluded him, those typically practiced phrases from boardrooms now feeling hollow. But another voice stirred inside him, one that resonated with the authenticity he had experienced moments earlier with the puppy. "I think sometimes we struggle between what we want and what we think we need," he found himself admitting. The children was entranced, drawn in by his honesty. Had he stumbled upon something essential? Dialogue that encouraged exploration rather than merely issuing commands. A fresh vista opened in his mind. What if he let go of the predetermined narratives he held close, using instead his own uncertainties to foster deeper dialogues? Realization washed over him. Perhaps he could employ this uncertainty as a teaching tool. How about we create our own adventure instead? He suggested with a newfound spark in his voice. What if we imagined a world where we could help others? Or even start with making a special birthday surprise for someone? Intrigued faces lit up around him, curiosity igniting excitement. The consensus was swift, and he found himself organizing a small plan with the children, each child brainstorming ideas of who to surprise and how. Off-the-wall suggestions turned into bright collaborations as they enthusiastically built a dream world in which kindness was the focal point. In that collaboration, Vincent shifted from a passive authority to an active participant, his previous insecurities beginning to unravel. It was exhilarating, shedding the typical corporate armor that bound him to expectations. As ideas flourished, so did the children's voices, and he reveled in the moment, riding the waves of their creativity. Was this how growth happened? Not through uptight corporate metrics but through shared ingenuity and laughter. His thoughts drifted back to the meeting approaches that often felt like strutting on a stage filled with critics rather than inviting collaboration. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again, a reminder of the inevitable meeting just days away. This was no longer merely a professional obligation, it had become a defining decision point. What kind of leader did he want to be? The polished puppet of the corporate world, or the authentic trailblazer willing to embrace vulnerability and connection? Vincent's heart raced at the possibility. What if he approached that high-stakes meeting not with strategies and scripted interactions, but with the same level of openness he had just shared with the children? If he placed compassion and collective creativity at the forefront, could he chip away at the cold, transactional culture he had become accustomed to? Clarity sharpened in that moment. He needed to face the forthcoming challenges, to intertwine his newfound insights into his corporate persona. The price of freedom over the corporate grind was proving to be a worthy investment. Okay, he exclaimed, pulling everyone's attention back, invigorated by the excitement of creating something profound. Let us map out our ideas for this surprise. With the children nodding enthusiastically, Vincent felt a fresh kind of courage surge within him. He was not just planning an escape from the corporate life, he was building bridges. Between who he was, who he wanted to be, and how he could serve others, both in childlike wonder and corporate strategy. Yet just as the energy ignited, his phone buzzed incessantly. Glancing at it, he stilled. His boss was calling, the weight of expectation looming large. It was a reminder that the worlds he inhabited were pulling taut against each other, the joy of the present clashing with the demands of the past. Now faced with a moment straddling the depths of personal integrity and professional pressure, he realized the choice was his. But could he step fully into his new vision when it would force him to confront the very identity he had constructed over the years? Who will you choose to be, Vincent? Echoed through his mind as he answered the call. Would this mark a turning point in his life, or would he retreat back to the shadow of the corporate ladder? The world beyond awaited his response. Vincent steadied his breath, the familiar cadence of his boss's voice breaking through the tension wrapping around him. The words flowed in a straightforward business style, urgent yet devoid of empathy. His boss outlined the expectations for the upcoming meeting, mentioning metrics and performance targets with mechanical precision. It was a stark reminder of the corporate language that had become a second skin for him. "Are you there, Vincent?" The voice crackled impatiently through the phone. "Yes, I'm here," he managed, the weight of conformity pressing down on him. As he listened, he felt the distinct pull of his former self rise to the surface, the meticulous planner who thrived on data and control. Yet alongside that persona, a deeper connection from the morning's experience pulsed within him, mundane business chatter feeling increasingly hollow against the vibrant energy of the children's laughter. As the call ended and he hung up, a spark of rebellion flickered. The meeting was a crucial opportunity to reshape how he engaged not only with his colleagues but also with the broader corporate culture he had known for so long. Could he dare to infuse the chaotic joy of spontaneity he had experienced earlier with the children into that boardroom atmosphere? The thought both excited and terrified him. He stepped outside, the sun warming his face, and felt a tug of resolve. He had charted a course away from the rigid life he had woven into his existence. And yet, to bring that evolution into a high-pressure setting was daunting. What if it faltered? The specter of judgment loomed large, but the glimmer of potential, embodying authenticity instead of performance, seemed to shine brighter. As he approached his car, the history of successes lay like shattered glass pieces once deemed valuable but now tinged with regret. What if he could integrate the lessons he had gleaned today to create a different outlook, one grounded in genuine connection? Transformational ideas began to bloom as he envisioned the meeting. Why not invite his colleagues to share their thoughts openly, fostering a collaborative dialogue instead of orchestrating discussions with rigid agendas? What if he encouraged others to voice their ideas without fear of critique, shifting the culture from one of competition to one of cooperation? Reflecting on the children brainstorming surprise ideas, he realized that the core of that experience was playful exploration. It tore down walls erected around creativity that had tarnished his corporate persona. He must bring that essence into his professional life, realigning priorities towards collective success rather than individual accolades. That spark of dedication ignited within him meant that he wouldn't merely attend the meeting, he would lead it with a refreshing openness. The risks were undeniably present, but the potential for growth both for himself and the team was immeasurable. He drove home, heart racing, anticipation swelling at the prospect of transforming both himself and his workplace. This was not merely a meeting, it was a new frontier. That evening, he reflected on his ideas, writing them down with clarity and passion. He felt a sense of urgency, a deep desire to rewrite the narrative he had lived for so long. Straddling two worlds hadn't cowed him, it offered him the tools to craft a new path. As he prepared for bedtime, he felt a childlike enthusiasm that had been locked away for years bubbling to the surface. Reconnecting to that joy became his compass. But as he settled in for the night, a nagging thought pricked at the edges of his mind. What would his colleagues think of this new approach? Would they embrace it, or would they push back against the shift? Doubts nestled in like shadows, whispering anxiously in his ear. Tomorrow marked not just a meeting but the potential to reshape his reality. He lay awake, the uncertainty gnawing at him while visions of bright-eyed children flashed vividly in his memory. What would happen when he stepped into that conference room? Would he emerge as an authentic leader, or would fear drive him back into the shadows of his old self? The dawn would bring clarity, but for now, it trapped him in the delightful chaos of anticipation, an echo of the children's laughter ringing in his ears, urging him onward. Vincent woke up the next morning, energized by the promise of a new day. The sun streamed through his window, illuminating his apartment in a refreshing light, dispelling the shadows of doubt that had lingered for too long. He felt a sense of clarity wash over him, a direct result of the experiences he had gathered from Ella's birthday party and the heartwarming day at the community center. With renewed conviction, he prepared for the meeting at work, mentally rehearsing his approach. He envisioned encouraging dialogue, creating a space where every team member could contribute with the same enthusiasm he had witnessed among the children. The thought of nurturing collaboration and mutual respect invigorated him. It marked a stark contrast to the corporate gamesmanship that had dominated his previous leadership style. Arriving at the office, he felt the familiar vibrations of the bustling workplace, but this time, they resonated differently within him. He walked into the conference room, and the air tingled with that sweet blend of anticipation and tension as colleagues settled in, some shooting him curious glances, others more skeptical. As the meeting commenced, the spirit of vulnerability and openness grounded him. "Thank you all for gathering today," he began, noticing how his voice held a steadiness he hadn't felt before. "I know we often delve into projections and metrics, but I'd like us to shift gears today. Let us explore not just what we do, but how we can do it better together." The surprise in their expressions fueled his resolve. They were unaccustomed to such a direct challenge. He pressed on, laying out his vision for embracing community outreach, paralleling it with the collaborative creativity he had experienced with children. Imagine using our skills to genuinely connect with the community, not just as a form of PR, but because it resonates with who we are. As he spoke, he saw the skepticism slowly melt away in some faces while others raised questions filled with curious energy rather than dismissive doubt. Each question elicited more enthusiastic responses from Vincent, who was invigorated by the collaboration unfolding before him. The room began to transform, their dialogue became a shared adventure, weaving together ideas of impact and corporate identity. One by one, reluctant colleagues began to articulate their own visions, and Vincent guided the discussion with grace. By the meeting's end, they emerged not only having conceived a solid strategy for the community initiative, but also a renewed sense of team spirit, one that honored individual contributions over hierarchical competition. People were smiling, not forced expressions of politeness, but genuine warmth that signified connection. As he wrapped up, a wave of gratitude washed over him. He had ventured into the unknown of vulnerability, and it had yielded gold. The effects of that transformative meeting rippled throughout the weeks to come. The accounts of the community outreach initiative took form, and every accomplishment from the smiles of children receiving supplies to the staff engaging in hands-on volunteer work served as validation of the path Vincent had chosen. His fellow employees began to recognize his authentic leadership style as a catalyst for deeper engagement, building a solid foundation of trust. Those quiet whispers of doubt, which had once dragged him down, now transformed into affirmations of strength. Yet the most profound change unfolded within Vincent himself. No longer was he just the CEO driven by ambition, he was now a champion of connection and purpose, finding fulfillment in each relationship built along this journey. The weight of loneliness had been replaced by the buoyancy of collaboration and commitment. The ultimate validation came one afternoon when Ella visited the office for a special event showcasing the community programs they had developed. Her bright smile radiated, capturing the essence of their collective endeavor and igniting a sense of pride in everyone present. Located among the bustling laughter of children and employees alike, Vincent felt a striking surge of fulfillment wash over him. It was a heartwarming testament to how far he had come. In the months that followed, Vincent solidified his reputation as a leader who connected with his team and community on new, enriching levels. He achieved not just personal success, but a tangible impact that transformed lives and nestled deeply within his heart. As he stood once again at his high-rise window overlooking the city, he no longer felt the weight of loneliness. Instead, he saw a vibrant landscape alive with possibility, each rooftop a reminder of the people he now treasured. This metamorphosis lay in the vitality of shared experiences and the understanding that real success was not merely about numbers on a balance sheet, but about the connections made, the lives touched, and the community built. Vincent had traversed the labyrinth of isolation, emerging not only transformed but emboldened, a tapestry woven from resilience, connection, and purpose. Now is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to this channel to be part of future exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to help the algorithm showcase these inspiring narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Vincent's remarkable journey and growth. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who can be inspired by this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, your engagement truly matters.